Well, starting from today, September 1, tobacco excise on cigarettes will rise 13% from 62 to 70 cents per stick. Excise on other tobacco products will rise 17%. Now, that means a 30-pack of a very well-known brand that I won't mention, but is currently retailing for $32.50. That's going to rise to $35.20, a hike of $2.70 as an example. And the tax rise on cigarettes reflects the last 6 months of wages growth, plus an ad hoc 12.5% increase. GST is imposed on both the cost of tobacco and the tobacco excise, so some say a tax on a tax. So the tax rise will go from 66% of the price of cigarettes to 69%. Now, some people think it's a good step in getting the remaining number of people off smoking. Some think it's cruel to the poorer, addicted smokers. Senator David Leyonhjelm has said the tax paid by smokers is at least 17 times the cost of that smokers impose on the health system, etc., and he's on the line right now. Thanks for your time.
Good morning.
Well, Senator, I presume you're obviously against the rises in tobacco excise?
Yes, I am, for a number of reasons. First of all, it's not reflecting the cost that smokers inflict on the community. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, your smokers cause more cost to the health system," but we're now collecting something in the order of $11 billion a year from smokers in taxes and excise, and that's many times, 17 times we calculate. Times the cost of the health costs, times those health costs. Now, the other thing is that so it's primarily a revenue raiser by the government. But I suppose the thing that really is frustrating is that it's now becoming taxes are now becoming so high they're counterproductive. They're encouraging a black market in tobacco. Organised crime is getting into it. It's less hazardous. If you get caught, you're not likely to go to jail for a very long period if you compared to smuggling drugs or guns, and it's highly lucrative. You know, the same pack of cigarettes that would sell for $1.50, $2 in another country overseas, would be selling for $30, $35 if they were legal, but they can sell them, say, here for $15 or $20 a pack, and the smokers here are grateful for it, and of course they make a big profit out of it. Well,
it's very hard to deny what you're saying there, particularly, I know we can't mention specifics too much because it's before the courts, but we do know there's a very high-profile case around Sydney very recently with raids where the allegations are of millions of dollars of these sorts of cigarettes, black market cigarettes.
Yes, there's KPMG does a survey of the illicit tobacco market in Australia and a number of other countries. Very sound, solid methodology, and they calculate that it's about 14% of the total tobacco consumption market, and that is illicit tobacco, and that the federal government is missing out on around about $1 billion in excise because of it. Of course, no taxes whatsoever, GST or anything, are paid on smuggled tobacco. And the funny thing is, people will say to you, "Oh, well, we've got to reduce smoking somehow or other." Smoking is, in fact, not falling in Australia at the moment. It hasn't fallen since 2013, and yet we have plain packaging, and we also have the highest taxes on tobacco in the world. The most expensive smokes in the world are in Australia. So why isn't smoking falling? It is falling in the United Kingdom. It is falling in the United States. And what's the difference? They don't have plain packaging, and they don't have excessively high taxes in those countries.
We did have a big fall up until 2013, though, didn't we? From in the 30s up down to about 13%.
Yeah, it's been on a steady decline for probably 20 years now.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't one thing that you could blame it, contribute it to. There has been a steady decline ever since we started telling people it's not good for you, and people who were concerned about their health gave it up. But what we're left with is about 14-point-something% of the population that smokes, about 2.5 million people. And obviously not all of them, but a good proportion of them are in the lower income groups. So when these taxes are imposed on them, it puts a strain on their wallets.
I guess really my question to you is, and I could broaden this out even to include alcohol, because sometimes they put forward this idea that we should tax alcohol on volume, not price, and therefore, once again, you'd be affecting lower income people who might buy a cask of wine versus a $30 bottle. Do you think that price is an effective way to change behaviour or an appropriate way to change behaviour?
Yes, it is within limits. I mean, almost everything is rationed somehow or other by price, and you don't have a better mechanism than price to ration something in short supply or to provide disincentives. The thing is, though, we've had rapidly rising or dramatically rising prices of tobacco products now for quite a long time, and those people who are going to give up on the basis of price have given up. And what we're left with is the people who don't want to give up or can't give up, one or the other. And so what's happening is that those who don't want to give up or can't give up are increasingly looking for these illicit smokes and moving away from the legal product. And it's not very hard to buy those illicit smokes either. They're available. But what I was going to say though also is that we have this fetish about tobacco and evil tobacco companies and all that sort of stuff in this country, and it's influencing our whole public policy. If we really were serious about getting people off smoking, and I'd be perfectly happy if everybody gave it up, we really ought to be making it easy for them to give up. And we are not. We don't have e-cigarettes, for example, in this country. They're not permitted, and yet they're available most other countries in the world: New Zealand, the UK, USA, pretty much all of Europe. And I think they are the difference. That they are making the difference in terms of smoking rates. Smoking rates are falling faster in the United States than they are in Australia. In fact, they're not even falling at all in Australia, really. And the reason, the explanation, in my opinion, is that people have a nicotine alternative to tobacco. Now, our health lobby, our public health lobby, just doesn't like the idea that the big tobacco companies are also starting to invest in e-cigarettes. They're not the only ones. There's plenty of others, actually. But they just don't like anything to do with the tobacco company.
By and large, there's a couple of renegades out there who say, look, you're better off with harm minimisation, etc., so e-cigarettes are a better option. But by and large, you're right, they're against them,
Yeah, they are. They're against them. And the fact is, though, that in countries where they are available, smoking is dropping. And in Sweden, where there is another nicotine alternative available called snus, which is a powdered tobacco which you put under your lip. It provides an alternative source of nicotine. Smoking in that country is down to 5%. 5%. Now, I think between the e-cigarettes in the other countries and snus in Sweden, it's as obvious as can be that what makes a difference to smoking rates once you get it down to, sort of below 20% probably, is the availability of an easy way of giving it up without doing cold turkey on your nicotine addiction.
Okay.
And so if we want to really help people give up smoking, then we've really got to think about how we're going about it.
There we are. Well, those increases coming in today, September 1. Good to talk to something federally apart from citizenship and gay marriage, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm a bit over those two subjects.
I'm sure you are. Although in terms of citizenships, your Senate colleagues seem to be falling like flies. If it all came to fruition, I don't think it will, though, do you?
No, well, there are some people who say the High Court will take a very strict black letter approach to Section 44 of the Constitution. I'm a bit more phlegmatic about it. I suspect they'll take a relatively pragmatic approach to it and say, well, if you really did have an allegiance to a foreign power, then that's one thing. But if you didn't even know you could have had an allegiance to another power, that's a separate thing. So I'm hoping they'll take a pragmatic view. But until they do come down with a decision, we're all speculating.
We are indeed. We'll leave it there for now. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.